Hey there, folks. Welcome to another Blazor Power Hour. And then we've got Fuel Snabble here with a question right out of the gates, which is fantastic. I thought tab navigation in MAUI was a bit awkward. Mobile first, you know. Do you know if there has been work on that? So I'm assuming you mean tab navigation as in the native tab navigation. Can you clear that up? Is that what you're talking about? I'm assuming just from watching the event yesterday that that's what you're talking about. If you didn't catch the event yesterday, the event I'm referring to is the .NET Conf MAUI Focus event. If you do a quick Google search for .NET Conf MAUI, you'll turn that up. I highly recommend it. This is actually what I was going to talk about today. Basically using keyboard to navigate grids and controls. Ooh, that I don't know about. That I don't know about. You mean tab is in the keyboard tab. Ah, see, I was thinking UI tab, which is a whole different thing. So if you go over to .NET Conf, focus on MAUI, there are some key sessions I think are worth watching, especially from a Blazor perspective. It's worth checking out all of it. And if you click on, here it is, the right-hand side here, there's actually a playlist that may not be apparent if you look at the main page here. I'm going to share this in chat as well. I know there were some, we'll get into this in a second, Fuel Snabble. We'll try to figure this out. I don't know if I'll be able to test it per se, but we can at least look at the notes that we have available and see what's going on with that. So .NET Conference, yeah, that's what it's short for, .NET Conf, focus on MAUI. There are 17 sessions, it looks like. I think it's 16, really. One is going to be the entire show, start to finish, I think, or just an intro. So I think this number 11 here is just the introductory bits. The rest of it is individual sessions. The ones that I would take a look at here, just from a Blazor perspective, take a look at Daniel Roth's from Web to Native with .NET MAUI. If you've seen MAUI before and Blazor Hybrid before, not a whole lot of new stuff there, but there are some interesting bits in there. Some of it is what I was referring to with Fuel Snabble's question. And in his presentation, he shows how to bring in some tab navigation, which is not the same kind that Fuel Snabble was talking about. Fuel Snabble was talking about keyboard tab key navigation. But Daniel Roth here in this example, assuming you all can see this, by the way, let me know if you cannot. Let's see here. Yeah, it looks like that's showing on my screen. So what he's done here, I'll pause it real quick. He has brought in a native MAUI XAML-based tab navigation. So each content page here is going to route to a component, a Blazor component. So these are the individual tabs in the tab control. And these are the Blazor components we're routing to through those tabs. We have index counter and so on. And when this renders, here we go. So I'm trying to zoom through this and find the right spot. You will get a tab navigation. There it is. Where, sorry, let me zoom in again. These are the tabs. We're currently on the Home tab. and it's rendering the index component here. Now, this portion up top, this black bar, is a platform native tab strip, and then the rest of this is HTML via Blazor. So it's mixing the two, hence the name Blazor Hybrid. The tab strip, it will render a native tab strip on mobile, which I think he does show a little example of here. There it is. So it does indeed work on mobile. And I think it may depend on what platform where that tab strip shows up. I believe iOS, it's on the bottom, and Android, it's on the top for some reason. Just because that's what those platforms do. So that's something that's interesting to me. This is going to make a very interesting problem for Blazor size, which is something that I will definitely be talking about at some point. Boomers like me just use the desktop anyway. Yes, indeed. Oh, I had that question pinned up there still. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about .NET Conf. This is what I wanted to chat about today, actually, is the fact that .NET Conf was yesterday. They talked about MAUI for quite a while here, 16 sessions. This was an 8-hour conference, I believe, because each one of these is half an hour. There's 16 sessions. Quick math says that was an 8-hour day. I watched as much of this as I could throughout the day. Another interesting takeaway in here is going to be where is that at? There is a security section on here. Let's see, creating accessible upgrade, performance, syncing data. There's all sorts of goodies in here, but there is indeed an authentication bit. There it is. Authenticate users, call protected APIs with your MAUI app. I'm going to have to watch this one a few times. This is a bit over my head. This is using like B2C and all of that good stuff, and I am not up to date on all of that currently. So I need to look into more of this public client stuff. Where we're using different authentication services and all of that. I think there is a service that would help with this, but it shows how to do authentication with MAUI, which will then help you authenticate with Blazor Hybrid. Because if you're using Blazor Hybrid in MAUI, you want to use the MAUI authentication bits to do your authentication. I love this. Yesterday, when every presenter said it just works, I may have been hurt too many times to trust it. Yeah, I get that. So far, MAUI is a really cool concept, and it's been a little bit of a rocky start, but it has been beta until yesterday. Well, I don't know if technically it was yesterday, but it really actually felt like yesterday was the proper release of MAUI. The reason I say that, and the reason I wanted to have a show about it today, is because there was a big change that came down the wire, and we'll get to that in just a moment. I just want to look through these one more time. We have the Daniel Roth session, the authentication session. The other one is there's one about upgrading your JavaScript app to .NET MAUI. This one is Alyssa Nichol. If you've been to our channel at all, you probably know what she's been working on. This is her session about her Blazor Hybrid app, where she replaces Blazor Hybrid. It's more of an Angular hybrid app. So she drops Angular in there so it can work with the MAUI bits. Napalm, feel free to ask. Can't seem to hurt either. If I can't find the answer, I can at least point you in the right direction, I hope. Was that the session where she deleted her source code? Kind of. That was her prep for it. She deleted part. Well, actually, it was an experiment she was trying to do with me live, and she accidentally deleted her code. So she wants to find a way to interop with .NET and Angular at the same time. Those are the ones I would say definitely check out first. Those 3 sessions are going to help you the most with Blazor Hybrid. There are quite a bit of things in here, though, that will just help you in general. There's also some accessibility stuff. This is the one, Fuel Snabble, that I would suggest taking a look at regarding the tab key question. So this is talking about accessibility. I did not watch it, so I can't say if they covered the tab keys or not. So that might be something to look at. So the reason I said that this is kind of like the real release for this, we'll have to go over to devlogs at Microsoft.com. I had a different experience with this than some people might have, so I'll explain in a minute. And I'll get to that question in just a second. If you go to devblogs.microsoft.com and you click over to .NET MAUI, this is something that dropped yesterday. Now, the only reason I figured this out is because my Visual Studio stopped working yesterday. It's working fine today, and I haven't run any new updates, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what order of operations made this break and then repair itself. So let's talk about that for a second. So it says productivity comes to .NET MAUI and Visual Studio 2022. What this really means is that MAUI is now part of Visual Studio 2022, where before you had to have Visual Studio 2022 Preview Edition for MAUI to work. Now you don't have to use Visual Studio Preview any longer. So this is now built into Visual Studio 2022 as long as you have the multi-platform workload installed. So this just kind of says, one platform, we know all that stuff. There's some other things that were updated in here as well. XAML Live Preview, XAML Hot Reload, works with .NET Hot Reload. So fingers crossed, your Blazor Hybrid apps will hot reload properly now as well. You'll also see in the screenshots something interesting here called the .NET Podcast app. We can talk about that in a minute too. So this is all new stuff here in regards to Blazor Hybrid and MAUI. So what happened to me yesterday, and I don't know if this happened to anybody else but me, it could have just been some weird thing on my system. I don't know. But if you look at Visual Studio, whoops, I grabbed the wrong one here. Let me find the VS installer. So if this happens to you, this is how I fixed it. It was strange. And once this comes up, we can chat about it. So this is the Visual Studio installer. This lets you manage multiple installations of Visual Studio. And it likes to say getting things ready for a while. Why am I getting things ready still? All right, Visual Studio installer. What are we doing? Besides holding up my show. All right. Let's try that one more time. We'll have to play pretend if this isn't going to work. I don't know if it's a network thing or what, because I'm streaming. But we'll let that go for a minute, and I'll try to answer this question instead. Let's see if I can answer this. MAUI iOS. I'm cheap, right? MAUI iOS? Why would that make you cheap? Aren't Apple devices expensive. Anyway, I want to delay. Oh, okay, that's why. All right, yeah, I don't blame you. I want to delay paying Apple until I have an app to submit. That being the case, I was told that hot restart would give me the ability to run local device without a Mac. No. Simulator won't work for my case because... Is there a free way to provision a MAUI app so I can delay paying Apple? Not that I'm aware of. So, what you need to have a MAUI iOS app work is a Mac. You need Mac hardware. Apple loves money. They will gatekeep as hard as they can to take your money. We aren't seeing that screen, only the blog. Oh, okay. Thanks for the heads up. So I was trying to load the Visual Studio installer and it just says keep waiting. Okay, it finally loaded. I'll share that in a minute, but thanks for the heads up on the screen share because we're going to need to look at that. Let's talk about this Mac thing real quick, since that's still kind of in the background. There is a service, I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called. Mac Remote Compile Service. There is a service. Mac and Cloud. I don't think that's the one I'm thinking of. Looks like there's apparently a few of these. It must be Mac and Cloud. This one, $25 a month. I'm sure there's other services. This is just one of them. But basically, you get a VM of a Mac, and you can compile to that VM. And there are hooks inside Visual Studio to remote access that thing, so you don't have to like pull up a desktop and all of that. I actually tried to do this once, and I had the wrong version of .NET installed on that VM, so it didn't work. But there's actually a little widget inside of Visual Studio that will easily connect those two things together, and then you can remote compile. It will just compile, though. You don't get to test and all of that through Visual Studio. You could probably remote into this machine, though, and actually try the built assembly out. But renting a Mac is probably going to be your cheapest solution. Buying one isn't that bad either. People get used ones, so you can, like, you know, marketplace those and get them secondhand. There's also, I know. I don't really like to come here, but you can always pay the Pied Piper. Little Silicon Valley reference there. Just get the cheapest machine possible. And there are there's iMacs and Mac Minis that are relatively affordable. I mean, these things used to be really expensive. I still give them a hard time, but they have brought down their prices considerably. Like $1,200 for a Mac with a 24-inch built-in monitor is kind of not a bad price. I know I'm giving Apple props here. They're truly evil. No, I'm just kidding. They're not as bad as they used to be. I mean, it's a great looking machine. It's fairly performant. They brag about themselves a lot here, and there's some Disney placement ads. But they do have good monitors here, and this is an M1, so there's graphics performance and PC performance in one. That's not a bad deal. If you don't need the monitor, Mac Mini is not bad either. Let's see here. Mac Mini. Again, relatively speaking, these are not that expensive. Starting at $699 for an M1 Mac Mini. So, you know, depending on what you can afford to grab, you can get in for $700 plus tax, depending on where you live. And then if you don't want to do that, you could always rent. You could always rent some VM space. As a European, yeah, especially they start tacking on taxes on those things. Is it more of a pain than it's worth? So I haven't gotten it to work, but I also haven't invested that much time in it, and I had the wrong versions of .NET installed. So my Mac had .NET Preview 7 on it and 6, and when you try to use the tool to connect them, which I'll show you in a sec how that's done, the tool exploded on the Mac because it ignored the JSON global.json file. And it ignores it on PC too, so it's not a Mac thing. It's a .NET thing. It really hates .NET 7. So let's see here. Let's get that off the screen. Share screen. Let's share the entire screen. All mirrors for a second. Visual Studio installer. So here's what happened. Let me fix the screen again real quick. Come on. There we go. All right. Yesterday, they, as in Microsoft, released .NET. They released .NET MAUI for Visual Studio 2022. Okay. This is a brand new release. 17.3.0 is the latest version. So, yeah. 17.3.0 is the latest version. They also simultaneously released 17.4 Preview 1 for the preview track of Visual Studio Enterprise, or Visual Studio. The problem with that was, for me anyways, is when I updated Visual Studio 2022 Preview, the Android emulator ceased to work. I don't know why. I did not at the time have this installed whatsoever. Okay, so this was my machine. This was the setup. I had 17.4 Preview 1 installed and updated to the latest version for preview. My app was working fine till I did this. After that, the dialog for the emulator went away. So if I go to my example application I've been working on, just repeating this all in case somebody has this happen to them, then they know what to do. Smab UK says I had a similar setup, but the community edition, and it let me check my emulator. Okay, so for me, I took screenshots of this. I'm glad I did. And it still takes a little while to load in. Or no, it's doing it again. Looks like it's doing it. I just had this up 5 minutes ago and it wasn't doing this. I swear. This was just working. Yeah, this is bugged. Something about this is bugged. So, something about this, the Visual Studio preview is bugged. It's set for Windows machine, even though I've selected the framework .NET 6 Android. This should be an Android emulator here instead, and it will not let me run this project. It will blow up. It says unable to start debugging, yada, 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 and make sure it's set up correctly. I don't know why it's doing this, and I cannot fix it. You can toggle this back and forth, and it doesn't seem to care. And Smab says it's working for him. So what I ended up doing was installing Visual Studio 2022 without the preview, because I went through my Twitter feed and noticed that it supports MAUI now. So let's try to launch that. And let's see if I can get this to work here. And this seemed to fix my problem yesterday. What's odd is I went back to preview this morning and everything was working on both preview edition and the non-preview edition. So there's immediately it says Pixel 5. So yeah. So if you have this issue, if you're running preview and for some reason you can't connect to an emulator, try switching over to the non-preview edition. There may also be, let's try this. Now that I've loaded the non-preview edition, let's try to switch back and see if it works now, because it was weird. Earlier, this actually did work. I even created a new project in the non-preview edition. Everything worked fine. Came back over to preview and it worked. So. And you can see as this loads up, it's still on Windows machine here. And it's not toggling off. I tried reinstalling preview also. I tried reinstalling the workloads and all of it. Didn't work. So I'm currently having to use the non-preview edition because something in the update, for me anyways, has broken the ability to run Android. I can configure them. So I can come in to the, let's see, where is it? Tools, Android, Device Manager. And I can launch them, I can configure them. You can see I've got one here ready to start. If I hit start, it will work. So I know the emulators are there, but for some reason Visual Studio will not toggle to them. So I've switched over to the non-preview, the non-preview edition. So yeah. Delete the VS folder from the solution. I'll have to try that, Mr. Magoo. So that is like all of the settings for Visual Studio for that application, which deleting that won't hurt anything. So I'll have to give that a try. So I do have .NET 7 installed, but the thing is I have a global JSON file that sets this to a that's another thing. I know you just saw that security box and just by habit I okayed it. I do not get that security dialog on the preview edition. So something is gone haywire. But yeah, if I go into my repos folder here, there's a global.json file. And my global.json file is set up for .NET 6. And so it doesn't look like it's a .NET version thing. But I would not recommend installing .NET 7 unless you have a reason, because it does interfere with things. Even though you're supposed to have side-by-side installations. Yeah, exactly. So SMAB, SMAB UK is on top of it. There are problems. There are problems with .NET 7. One of those things was the emulator connections that we were talking about, which I said I'd kind of show where that setting is at in here. So do not install .NET 7 and try this. It's going to fail for you. It does not look at your global JSON file. It looks deeper into the system than that. So global.json is it's whatever root that file is in, all of the subfolders under it will inherit that setting. You cannot put that global.json file up in your hierarchy far enough because of security reasons for it to take effect and be seen by the installers that have to run for some of this stuff, and I think that's what the problem is. What about a global.yaml file? Yeah, that's going to fix everything. Yeah, so side-by-side installations are a nice idea, but not exactly happening like we thought they were. But if you want to connect that Mac, we were talking about connecting Macs up here in the title bar, or the tab toolbar. It's just over on the other side of Run here. You'll see these little device-looking widgets. This one is like, I think, connect to... it's either an emulator or a physical device. There's another button here. This third one here, this little picture of a computer monitor, that's the one you're going to want to look at for pairing it to a Mac for your remote compiles. And I would assume this go for your rented Mac as well, your cloud Macs. So the first one is the Android Device Manager. And we can pop that open. This is your virtual devices that are on your ADM. Okay. Don't show that again. This is your devices that you have as far as emulators go. There's the Android SDK Manager. So this is all your Android SDK stuff. There's the ADB command prompt, device log. Then this one says pair to Mac. Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is allow remote login on that Mac, which mine is already set up for this. This kind of shows you how to do it. Then hit OK. And then you need to put in the credentials for that. So you do add Mac, put in the IP address. You may get prompted for a login. That will kick off an installer on the Mac. You have to have Xcode installed already as well for that to work. Once this process is complete, though, and you've added it and you follow these instructions here. There you go. You actually have the login screen that comes up. Xcode needs to be installed. Make sure you run it. Don't just install it, but you actually have to run Xcode one time for it to finish its installation. It doesn't tell you that as it installs, so there's a heads up. Then you can actually run your build tasks from that remote machine. This is how you do it on the command line. I think you can do it from within the UI as well. So if somebody was asking how hard this was, who was asking how hard this was? Was it Napalm? Yeah. Yeah, troubleshooting issues on this is not fun. But that's where the connections are. So to recap so far, what was new with MAUI? Visual Studio is what's new with MAUI. So Visual Studio, you can use the non-preview edition. I know this is probably a big deal for folks that are in enterprise settings where you're not allowed to install preview bits on your machine. Maybe you don't have, you have IT policies that just you're not allowed to do these things. Maybe your manager has to sign off on what Visual Studios you're allowed to use, that sort of thing. This is a game changer for those folks. So that is a big change. That's a big what's new. Visual Studio non-preview is supported, or supporting MAUI now. There's also on GitHub, if you do a search for .NET Podcast Sample App, you'll find videos about it, but the first actual URL you hit that's not a video is a GitHub repo, and I'll post this in chat. Post that in chat. This is a kitchen sink app for .NET MAUI, and it looks like this. So it has the web, desktop, and mobile applications in it. So it is a MAUI app. I think it's a Blazor Hybrid app, actually. So this is something that is being updated frequently. And this is similar to the Blazing Pizza app in a lot of ways, where it was kept up to date with all the latest Blazor releases. You can see that they were preparing for the .NET Conf MAUI and the release of .NET MAUI. So 6 days ago, this was updated. So that brought this up to the latest versions of everything. And you can see in here, this is all the things. .NET Core, Entity Framework, MAUI, Blazor, Azure SQL Database, Azure Storage, Azure, and more Azure. All right, so big block diagram here of what this whole app entails. There is a Blazor WebAssembly app in here, which is then used to power the MAUI UIs in the desktop and mobile apps. So if you haven't checked that out yet, this is a pretty good example of what can be done with the technology. So we've got a native MAUI application for all the things. We also have a Blazor Hybrid application for all the things. So this actually has a dedicated native MAUI UI app, it looks like. So it has everything in it. It has an ASP.NET Core web app. Kind of curious as to how this actually runs locally, because I know there are issues with the local host and APIs when you're running emulators. So I wonder how they did it. The apps are configured to speak to local host on the correct ports for each service. Simply open and run. Oh, they're using Docker. So it looks like they have some Docker magic that's allowing this to work. I don't know Docker, so I don't know how they made that. But it's something I could probably learn by looking at it. So that's the other major update here. Is this is always being updated. Make sure you come look here if you want to learn more about everything. This might be a bit of a complex demo. There's a lot going on here. If we look under source, we've got mobile, which is the MAUI native application. We've got mobile Blazor, which is the MAUI Blazor Hybrid application. And then you've got the web application, which probably gets referenced by that web mobile Blazor. Mobile Blazor probably has a dependency on this web folder here. And then you have services, which runs all of the background stuff. And they even went as far as to, if you deep dive into this folder, you have audio services for each platform for playing the podcast audio. So they're going full, like, deep dive in this application. Like, they're doing everything. Like I said, kitchen sink app. Sometimes those can be a little bit daunting if you're just trying to get used to something. So finally, the last thing I have, something I showed, I want to say it was not last week, but the week before, possibly. I'm working on an article to try to help folks get from web to desktop with their Blazor apps and kind of share code between desktop and mobile. I have shared my project for this. Blazor Hybrid app and web in one solution. So this is kind of like a starter. If you want to grab that and check it out. And it's evolving. There's things that I just refactored out. They just didn't make sense, but they were cool to try. So there have been some updates to try to simplify this a little bit. But essentially, you have your client, your hybrid. These are your two UIs. So we've got our web in the first project. And I hate this every time I install Visual Studio, I have to do this. You'd think I'd have my settings synced or something like that. I like my Solution Explorer on the left because I use Visual Studio Code also. This is the Blazor app. This is the MAUI app. This is all the shared logic. This is all the shared UI. These both have dependencies on these solutions here. So you only have one set of pages. So there's one set of pages, one set of components, and a single CSS file that powers both the Blazor app and the Blazor Hybrid app. So that is up there. Where's the... All right, Eagle. I see you. The test project here. The test project is at liveproject.manning.com. I'm just going to start linking to this. This is going to be my my shameless plug every time Eagle shows up. And yeah, so this is where you find the unit tests. They're inside here. I guarantee it. B-Unit is fantastic, by the way, and hopefully we are continuing to sponsor B-Unit at Progress here. It's been nice to help try to support that as much as we can, Eagle. All right, so that's all the updates I think I have. We have Visual Studio now. We have 2 projects. And let's see, what else did we have launch? We've got the .NET Podcast app. We've got my app. I'm working on an article for this thing. I didn't see any new APIs come across. There weren't any, like... We've been in release candidate mode for a while, so there have been quality of life updates. So if you go to devblogs.microsoft.com, there's been stability updates, basically. Nothing breaking changes. So community toolkit's been updated. Trying to find... There was a post on this somewhere. Maybe it didn't post under MAUI. Maybe it's just under .NET. August updates. Yeah. .NET 608. And .NET Core 3.1 got updated? Interesting. All right, .NET 608. There were, again, this is mostly just security updates, and there's some MAUI updates too. I'm not seeing them on this page. I know I read this morning. Maybe it was in the productivity. I did see it. So anyway, there's no new APIs or anything, but they've been updating the stability of .NET MAUI, even though it's already out. Here it is. This release also delivers the latest stability improvements for .NET MAUI SDKs, our 5th release. So that was the other what's new I wanted to show real quick. So there are updates happening behind the scenes in the SDKs. to make things better. So these are like service packs, however you want to, put semantics around it. These are things to make life better for us as developers. So these are kind of like bug fixes, security fixes, that sort of thing. Yeah, so I haven't started testing too much stuff within MAUI yet. I know there's going to be some Blazor size things that I need to test and look out for. I don't know if they're going to change anything with BUnit though. I'll have to see if I run into any BUnit stuff. But I'll go back to it in a second while we have a few minutes here. But before I wrap up, there are some .NET stuff. So if you are looking at previews, .NET Preview 7 shipped. There's a lot of performance things probably in here. There were a couple Blazor things, and they're going to be in the ASP.NET section. Just trying to see if there was something in here. Yeah, this is all optimization stuff. ASP.NET Core. There's some performance things, and where is it at? HTTP results, new interfaces. I didn't see that one before. The new loading page. That was a new Blazor thing. This is in .NET 7, not MAUI, but .NET 7. I kind of have mixed feelings on this. So I like that we have a new loading UI, but this also makes me kind of scared that we're saying that it's okay that Blazor takes a long time to load, and we're just kind of band-aiding the fact. I mean, I know the folks on Daniel Roth's team have pushed as hard as they can to make this as small and performant as possible, but the fact that we still need a percentage loader on it just kind of stings a little. But it's nice that they gave us this. So there are some CSS custom properties, so they've done it right. I love that they put CSS props in here so we can control the look and feel of this without like something. I love Sass, but for something like this, it's just not necessary to add that kind of dependency. So it's done right. It's there. Glad it's there. I just wish we didn't need it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's some binding support. I saw Eagle, you were chatting about this on Twitter. I think it was maybe this morning. So there is a bind after setting now, which I haven't quite gotten into. So it's, I guess, after the data binding. So it runs async logic after the binding event has completed. So I'm not sure how that exactly works yet. I'd have to look at some use cases and see how good that is going to be and help us. Yeah, the new loading screen is nice. It's just, it sucks that we actually have to have that. I wish there was a way to load Blazor faster. And it's not for the sake of them not looking for a more performant way. It's just, it is what it is. Nature of the beast type of thing. So the bind set are huge though. I do see a lot of use for those. So there's bind get, bind set. So originally you could have just one getter and setter for these things. So you're bound to one property. That made things like async and some other things like doing different method calls on get and on set impossible with data binding. You had to basically just wire up your own data binding. Now we have modifiers for that. There's virtualization improvement. And then this one is really cool too. Passing state using Navigation Manager. So Navigation Manager can now take a state object as history. So, you know, you're adding things to your cart or something like that. and then you're going to go to your orders page. You can actually bookmark different things within your state as you navigate. So if you hit back, maybe you're doing orders here and you're changing like a permalink instead of like actually navigating completely away. You can actually hit back through those permalinks, and maybe you're adding or navigating to specific orders, whatever it is. You can actually push state in and out of this as you go, which I think is really cool. Angular and React templates is not Blazor specific at all. So there's new stuff in preview as well. So it'd be fun to check that stuff out when I get back from conferences next week. Blazor server shouldn't require a loader at all, Fuel Snabble. Not that I can think of, unless you're on just a terrible connection. Now, Eagle, I was talking about testing. I don't see how this is going to be testable in BUnit, but I did notice in one of Daniel Roth's presentations something a little bit mind-bendy around Blazor size that I'm going to have to deal with. And that is if you mix .NET Conf MAUI. If you mix Blazor Hybrid, or if you mix XAML, I feel like I have a guest here. Oh, I just have a lurker. If you mix XAML and Blazor in the same view. Where's Daniel Roth's session again? There it is. And he has this in here. One thing I'm going to have to go in and look at with Blazor size is the fact that this is going to change the screen size and make it inaccurate. So if you use JavaScript, your screen size is going to be this, and it's going to not count this section here. So this could throw off media queries. And if you had, say, a XAML application that took up this side of the screen, if this was native and this was Blazor, and you use Blazor size, your screen width is going to report this section here and ignore this over here, which means your media queries and breakpoints are going to hit incorrectly here. So Blazor size with Blazor Hybrid using a mixed UI approach is going to be a headache. So I'm trying to think if there is a way to do some service interface implementation swapping to account for that somehow. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, Eagle. If it needs to be documented somewhere that Blazor size, yeah, it's only going to report the web view parts, so you're going to have to put some if-def stuff in there, or you're going to have some alternate way of reporting the screen width for that to work right. So take care. See you soon.